This podcast is a 98 Studios production.
Today's the day, baby.
Today's the day.
Today's the day.
Today's the motherfucking day.
Today is the day.
Today's the day.
Today is the day.
Today's the day. What up, everybody? Welcome back to Today's the Day with Zach Anderson. This is going to be I'm anticipating this to be one of my favorite episodes because this is one of my favorite people in the world. Mr. Jeremy Guthrie, thank you for being here. G-Ride, my dog. I'm so excited.
Z-Man, this will be almost as good as our trip to Spain back in 2017.
There's no shot.
Maybe even better. Who knows?
Spain's your favorite place in the world, and you were a different animal. A story about Spain, actually. This has nothing to do with
my
anything.
second favorite place in the world, though, is a podcast.
There we go.
With
I like
my
that.
guy.
There we go. How old are you? That's a random question. But
44, but I'm 3 days away from 45.
So I have to preface, we went to Spain. So you're one of my favorite people ever, and Spain is when you became one of my favorite people ever. We went to Spain, go pick Grant up. It was a blast. We got out there. You were on something else. You were awake by 5:30 every morning, and you didn't go to bed till like 1 every morning. And then we were on like these crazy city walks. Dude, you're the man. I don't know how you have so much energy. I don't know how you do what you do. I'm excited. It's gonna be fun.
It was great times. Nothing better than the trip to Spain. Do the listeners know who Grant is? You just threw it out there like
Grant's one of my best. I talk about him all the time. Alex Dunn was on the podcast.
Just making sure
Alex's
like we know
son.
the viewers have to know, but
They do.
The 1 to 5 made me think of the mission, and maybe we'll get there, but the mission was more like 3 to 6. So I operate at weird hours.
You do. You operate at really weird hours, and you always have unlimited energy. So I'm stoked, dude. Little background. That's where we met. Stayed friends ever since. Late night IHOP runs. You're just one of my favorite people ever. So I'm really excited. But we've never sat down and I haven't had the opportunity to sit down with you and go and get your story and your background and everything. Obviously, there's the really obvious pieces. Everyone knows Jeremy Guthrie as who you are, right? The companies that you run right now, and then most would you say most recognizably from your baseball days?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
The funny thing was I went to Japan one time,
He
though.
says probably.
I went to Japan one time on a baseball trip. This is no joke. And, I'm with Robinson Cano, famous Yankee player. I'm with all these other guys, and everyone gets off the bus one by one. Oh, Robinson Cano, New York Yankee. Oh, Yasiel Puig, Los Angeles Dodger. And I kid you not, I get off the bus and they go, oh, Jeremy Guthrie, mini sneakers.
No way. So you might be more well known for the sneakers.
I was on a baseball trip and they still want to talk about my sneakers.
So you're legendary for a few reasons. Number one, for anyone who doesn't know, and most people already know, obviously World Series pitcher, right, with the Royals, long career in baseball. And I actually don't know a ton about your baseball career, so I'm excited to even get into that. You're like the sneaker god, right? You always have the unreleased sneakers. You have the vault, which is like you probably have one of the most coveted collections, which I actually want to talk about as well because we talked more about that of probably anybody out there. You're wearing
these old things,
yeah, those old things right there, unreleased. And dude, it's crazy. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. So for my sake and for my entertainment, and then we'll get into like the golden nugget questions and everything. I would really love to go and hear like your story from start to where we're at. And I know bits and pieces, and it's super fun for me to connect them. And then I think there will be a ton of lessons involved in everything and golden nuggets throughout. But where are you from? What was growing up like? How did you get into what you got into? What was the situation at home? Start at the beginning and then take it however you choose.
Did you just tee me up like Chunk in the Goonies?
100%.
Like spill your guts, kid.
100%.
That's not the worst part. I went to the theater.
And if you don't spill your guts and start crying, this is a failed episode because Casey cries every time he comes. So you got to cry.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So I was born in Roseburg, Oregon, small town in Central Oregon, and spent my first 12 years there. My highlights in Roseburg, Oregon were definitely chess. I was on the chess team.
I was chess club in high school.
Were you really?
Yeah, but not because I was good. It was because I had to fill a period.
Were you like the manager though? Or were you like really?
No, and I was the golf manager because I wasn't good at golf either.
You weren't the chess manager?
No. I like
carry the pieces and the clocks?
Yeah, I did. I had a little thing. I had a clock, a little touch clock.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I might have stole that from my high school. I think I still have that actually. So
I need that if you have
you
it.
You can have that chess set.
I was a part of the chess club though in Roseburg. Loved it. I was a state champion in 5th grade. I was a 8th place national team.
No way.
In 6th grade. We dominated. We had the dream team. We had 5 guys on our chess team that loved the sport, if you will. And we just practiced all day long, practice every morning before school, practice at lunch, practice after school.
Always timed?
No, not always timed.
Really?
We played games straight up as well.
So when you compete, did you compete straight up or time? Like, what
No,
was
you always
your-
have time. In competition, you always have to have a clock.
You always do.
But I never played a long enough match that the clock came into play. A few of our teammates did. In fact, one of my favorite stories is one of our teammates was like 2.5 hours deep into a match. And then the opponent, when he knew he was going to lose, claimed that they had an incorrect move at the very beginning. And so they actually had to go all the way back, and they never could prove whether it was or wasn't incorrect. And so they
No
played like
way.
a 5.5 hour match, and finally they put the clock on him to make it go faster, but it was ridiculous.
And did your buddy win?
Yeah, he did.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
The guy refused to move. He just kept saying, "I'm tired, Maurice. I'm tired."
He
wouldn't move. He wouldn't move. He just like stalled when he knew he was going to lose the second time. So anyway, so chess was big. When I was in 6th grade, my parents moved me and my 3 siblings. I have 2 older brothers and a younger sister. And we went down to Ashland, Oregon, which is about an hour and a half south of where I was born.
Mm-hmm.
And we went down there. My dad moved his business. He sold used cars. And we went to a new high school. Really, my brother was a junior in high school, and we went to Ashland High School, which was a powerhouse in football. And we left a powerhouse in football too. Ironically, the high school we left beat me and our team back-to-back years and won back-to-back state titles. So had I stayed where we were, we would have won 2 state championships. But as it was, we got dominated by Roseburg.
That's a slap in the face.
Yeah, definitely slapped us a few times. But went down there and was raised, by 2 great parents. My parents were super supportive in everything. They were always at our games, and they never missed anything. My dad always had time for us, and my mom was just an angel. Everyone loves my mom. And so was raised down there with great friends, unique experiences in Ashland. It's a little hippie town, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, little town on the border with California, Shakespeare Festival there.
There we go.
Even bigger than the one in Cedar City. And, just all kinds of unique characters and fun people that love to express themselves uniquely.
Mm-hmm.
We were good at football. That was kind of my passion. My brother led the way, and I came a few years after him and played on some good teams and had dreams of playing football in college. That's really what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I also played basketball on the varsity team. I played baseball as well. And when it was all said and done, baseball was where the opportunities were after high school. So
you're just a freak athlete.
No,
you were just
I wasn't.
varsity on
not a freak athlete.
Baseball, basketball, football. Football was your first choice.
That's how it was done in the old days, though. You played multiple sports. And
defaulted to your second choice and just kind of went all the way
exactly.
with it.
Yeah, no, probably my third choice, really. But
really,
basketball was by far my least probably talented sport. I'm not very tall, and I didn't jump very high, and I couldn't do much except shoot 3-pointers. So
mm-hmm.
limited in that way. But when high school was over, I had a chance to go to BYU on a scholarship and play baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I wanted to go to BYU because it was an experience I had after my junior year of summer where I went to EFY, especially for youth.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on the BYU Provo campus. And it was just an incredible week filled with a lot of learning and realization of who I was and what I wanted in my life.
Mm-hmm.
The Spirit just spoke to me so clearly, and I associated that experience naturally with BYU because that's where I was. And
yeah,
there was 3,000 or 4,000 kids that shared my same faith and beliefs in their own personal ways. But I'm like, this is, if EFY is this much fun for 6 days, imagine what BYU would be like.
How old were you when you went to that?
17.
You were 17.
Yeah. So it was really there that
That's
I
cool.
decided that I'm going to go to Brigham Young University if I can. Before, I don't even think I really spent too much time thinking about where or if I'd go to college. But following that week in the summer of 1996, it must have been.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's where I want to go. So prepared that way, got good grades in high school, was a valedictorian. That was a big goal that I had when I was an 8th grader. I remember I was struggling to get good grades, mainly because I wasn't putting in the effort. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend, Dustin Greer, he looked at me, he's like, why don't you just get better grades? You could do better if you just tried a little harder. And I looked at him, I said, fine, I'll never get another B again. I'll get straight A's. And I did. So I worked really hard.
You out?
Yeah, he did. He called me out like a good friend should. He said, you should do better than that. I think I had a D in music because I was really disruptive in class and earned every bit of the D.
Yeah.
And so he saw that one. I think that was the one that tipped him over the edge.
He's like, dude.
I think a couple of B's, he probably would have been fine. But when he saw the D on there, he's like, you can do better than that.
Yeah.
And so I told myself I'll never get another B ever again. And I didn't in high school. I did in college, of course.
No B's in high school.
No B's.
So then you go to EFY, you get to your senior year of high school, your game plan for your life. It sounds like so far pretty smooth. Like, what were the big disruptors growing up? If you remember any, like,
Yeah.
what were in your perspective at the time? And the really cool thing that I noticed with people, especially people that are like my favorite people that are an energy deposit everywhere they go, is like they kind of don't even reside in those places that were like the lows, if that makes sense. I'm curious if there were any that you remember that stand out. Like, yeah, dude, I don't talk about it because I don't care much about, I don't give any power to it. But I also think those are super valuable because it's very relatable, right? And then people can go and be like, okay, cool. Like, everything's not always, you know what I'm saying? So if there were any, like, what were the big disruptors through that time period up until your senior year of high school? Because then your life gets super exciting to go and talk about and crazy. If there were any, like, did you have any moments?
Absolutely, there were. I think the biggest disruptors, as you put it, would probably be in 8th grade. I think that was just a hard year. I don't know why. Middle school for, I think, girls can be really tough. For guys, it's generally a pretty safe spot for the most part. But that was just a hard year. School-wise, I didn't love where I was at. And I don't remember anything about it being at home, having any challenges, but maybe it was just hard in general. I just wasn't, maybe I was just kind of going through that change that you go through as a young boy. So that would be one. But I think the biggest one was probably for sure when I was in 10th grade. So we finished freshman year and I had my group of friends. There's about 6 or 7 of us that hung out most every day.
Mm-hmm.
And the routine was pretty similar. We'd go to one of 3 homes and we would play basketball in the backyard court, or we would play football, but mostly just basketball. And we'd play Ken Griffey Jr. baseball on Nintendo. I don't know what it was called, 64, maybe something else.
Nintendo game, yeah.
Maybe Super Nintendo. I think it was Super Nintendo back in that day. But we hung out all the time and all of us played our sports together. We all played basketball, football, and baseball, not always on the same team, but always, if there was 2 basketball teams in the middle school, we were on both those teams.
Yep. 1
football team, and then Little League Babe Ruth, there would be 3 or 4, 5, 6 teams that we would be split up on, but we always played against each other.
Yeah.
So sophomore year, I all of a sudden only 2 or 3 of us play football, then only 1 or 2 of us play basketball, and only 3 or 4 of us play baseball. And by junior year, even less. And by senior year, I think really maybe 1 of my friends played basketball, 2 played football, and only 1 other one played baseball. And it was just kind of this transition as sophomores where they began to kind of dive into other activities, partying and whatnot. And I think there, that kind of loss of friendship circles, and the way it happened was really unique, respectful in many ways, is they knew the standards I wanted to live by in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew that drinking alcohol and parties wasn't part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they started to do that in their own lives, they didn't even invite me. So it could be taken one of 2 ways, right? You can be like, oh man, they're jerks. They're not inviting me to come along. But
or it's just out of respect.
It was out of respect for me. I certainly didn't take it that way, but it didn't make it any less difficult. But
for sure,
all of a sudden the phone calls or the, hey, let's hang out after schools, or what are you doing this weekend? Those conversations just really came to a halt. Like as soon as football was over freshman year or sophomore year, was like, boom.
Yeah.
It's over. Like we don't hang out anymore because we're doing something different than what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I spent the majority of my sophomore year alone. Had a couple of good friends that I spent some time with that were kind of on the newer circle, but I spent a lot of time alone. And I was, I played on varsity sports those 3 that season as well, for football, basketball, and baseball. So now you got older kids that are, sometimes they pick on you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't have your friendship safety net. And on top of that, you got other older kids kind of picking on you. Because when you're
on an island.
Yeah, because when you're with them, obviously they're going to razz you a little bit, right? If you're just on JV or a lesser team with your kind of your class, nothing's any different. But when you're on a different team, all of a sudden there's seniors.
You were just kind of put on an island.
Yeah. So that's where I spent 10th grade. So that would be a huge disruptor for me. I think if I pointed to one, no doubt about it, that would be the biggest
100%.
one.
That's tough. That makes a lot of sense. That's cool. So then moving forward, right? You're a senior in high school. You experienced DFY. That's a really cool experience for you. Probably. And I don't know the town you grew up in. Do you feel like that was just because like, holy crap, now there's all these people that I relate to in so many ways that in other places I don't relate to as many? Do you feel like that's part of why? Or why do you think it was so impactful for you to the point where you're like, that's ultimately a big reason why you decided to go there for college, right?
Yeah, certainly the sheer numbers was really impactful, because I came from a high school where we had a good number of people from our church. We probably had 60, which is a huge number for a high school that only has roughly 1,200 students in it.
Yeah.
But it was just the sheer fact that when you go to EFY, there's 4,000, 5,000. And, presumably for that week, you feel like you're really all similar.
Yeah.
And so just having fun with people that have similar standards and just seeing the way they get high on life
Mhm.
versus high on substances, like that's what I wanted. Like this is a place I would love to be for an extended period of time, 4 years or even 1 year,
That's awesome.
whatever it would be. So that's what helped me make that decision.
That's awesome. So then senior year, did you plan to go on a mission? Like, were you just like, okay, you had like a pretty structured life plan? And I think that's actually one of the big values of the LDS church is like, it kind of gives you a structure going into your adult life, which I think a lot of people get lost in like the gray area of like, I don't really have anything to be doing, so I may as well go fill my time with something. And they sometimes choose not the best things. And that structure, I think, is super valuable. Were you pretty structured, like going into your senior year, you had a pretty clear like game plan, or was it, and fill me in on that, like your headspace that year going forward?
Yeah, it was. I did have a plan, and it really stemmed from that same week at EFY, just a great experience with Brad Wilcox. A lot of people know who Brad is now because he serves in the General Young Men's Presidency for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so he travels the world and meets with young men and young women and tries to inspire them in their faith in Jesus Christ. At the time, Brad was a professor as well as an instructor at these, especially for youth camps. And so his messages were ones that just resonated with me and the majority of all who went to his class. Like everybody loves Brad Wilcox, and still to this day, they love Brad. And so just going to his class over and over just inspired me to want to be more like Jesus and try to be a more loving person, and really directed me on the course of serving 2 years as a full-time missionary was something that I wanted to do. I felt such a burning in my heart that I wanted to go and to be a missionary. It's like, the more you experience that connection with heaven and that connection with Jesus, the more you want to speak about it, the more you want to share it and live it. That's what I experienced as a 17-year-old. Even if I didn't put it all together, I'm like, wow, I feel so good. I want to go talk about this.
Yeah.
And so it really was that summer going into my senior year that I kind of formally structured my life. Okay, this is what I want to do and become. And here are the things I need to do in my life to be prepared to do those things. And so changes and deviations in course to make sure I was on a path that would take me to
Where you
be able
want
to be a missionary.
That's awesome. So then you went out, and from what I do know about your mission, because we went out to Spain together, like that was like, I want to hear about that experience all over again, because I've already heard some of the stories. Like, I think it's one of the greatest things anybody can go and do. And a lot of people that come on here talk about their missions as like a super big catalyst in their life that goes, and it's like kind of your gateway into adulthood. Like that's, you grow up, you learn to go be totally self-sufficient. You learn so many things. How was that experience? So you graduate your senior year and you just go ship off, and you got your call, and were you stoked, or what was that whole experience? Then tell me stories about the mission. I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So, in the last few years, they've changed the age requirement from 19
that's right.
to 18. So at the time I needed to be 19 to be able to be eligible to be a missionary. So most young men and women that had thoughts of going would go to college first or work. So I went to BYU first and prepared for that. So went to classes there and took religion classes and took.
Were you playing baseball at the time?
I was as well. Yep. I was playing baseball there, and I would meet my eventual wife at BYU. So that's really where my preparation came in for that time as a missionary. And then once you get to Spain, I mean, well, first of all, you have to learn the language. I had to learn Spanish, and I had not studied Spanish in high school at all. So that was a totally new experience. And you talk about, disruptions in your life. That was a big disruption. I mean, it's all fun and games to go be a missionary until you show up the first few weeks.
You don't know what's going on.
And you got no friends, and you got no family, and you're being pushed to learn a lot of things, whether it's a language or just really diving into the scriptures, which, I was like every other kid. I knew some scriptures, but I wasn't a scriptorian by any stretch of the imagination. So you're running 12-hour days constantly in the books, and you're living by totally different standards, and there's no more TV, and there's no more hanging out with your friends and playing sports all day. It's, you're working. You're a full-time disciple missionary for the church, and as such you're expected to live by certain standards. So that was a big disruption, but making it through those 12 weeks, as it turned out to be, I was in the training center for 12 weeks. Then you get to Spain and you're just super excited. Oh, now we're get down to business. We're going to meet real people, and real people were real people were real people. Real people threw me in jail. I got tossed in jail one day, like
You went to jail
2 weeks into my mission, because I talked with a gentleman in the street. He was an off-duty cop or an undercover cop or who knows? I don't even know what he was. I said, hi, my name's Jeremy, my name's Elder Guthrie, and I'm a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And he said, next thing I know, he's like, pasaporte. I'm like, okay, I kind of know what that word, passport.
Yeah.
And he's like, where is it? And I didn't have it, because they had taken it from us so we could establish our residency. So I had a photocopy of it. I'm like, well, is this what you want? He's like, that's not good enough. Takes me to jail. I have no idea what's being said. I have no idea what's going on.
No way.
And I end up sitting in a waiting holding room for like 3.5 hours while my companion, who does speak the language, is calling our mission president, being like, hey, they got him, like, they're going to put him in jail for the night. And they said he can't leave until he has a
they
passport.
booked you because you didn't have your passport on hand?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously
was that in your first little bit out there?
Yeah, that was like my first 2 weeks. So, like, you're excited to go out into the real world and be a missionary, and the real world gets even more gruesome than the MTC, where all of a sudden you are at the mercy of a lot of things. And I mean, geez.
What city were you in?
Santiago de Compostela, the far west coast of Spain. And I mean, I don't know how many people had prisa, which is I'm in a hurry. I mean, everyone had prisa. No one wanted to talk to you. A few people would kind of spit towards you and wave their finger in your face like this and make this little noise. So that was a grind. The first 3 months of being a missionary were by far the hardest.
Was there any point where you're just like, what the heck am I doing? I should not
what the
be
heck
here.
am I doing, but I knew what I was doing. That's the one that probably saved me, right? I knew what I was doing. I knew why I was there.
Yeah.
It just was hard. It was hard because nobody listened. It was hard because I couldn't understand them. So they wouldn't listen to us because of who we were. I couldn't understand them because of the language. And, you're just far from everything. And you kind of think about, oh, this is a 2-year commitment. And when you're looking at it at the beginning, you have every bit of those 2 years ahead of you.
Yeah.
And you feel like it'll never
It's
end.
heavy.
And you know what else? I tried to go get food the first week I was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh man, chicken nuggets look good. And I saw these things in the freezer, croquetas de pollo. I'm like, man, that looks just like a chicken nugget. That's got to be amazing. And pollo, I know what that is. That's a chicken nugget.
Yeah.
So I go put them in the oven, cook them, and bite into it, and they just like melts in my mouth. I'm like, oh, what is this? It's like a dough.
Yeah.
And it's like raw. It's warm, but it tastes raw. And I asked my companion, like, what is a croqueta? It's like, oh, it's like a fried dough. I'm like, oh, it's horrific. I said, do they not have chicken nuggets in this country? He's like, well, if you go to McDonald's, you can find chicken nuggets, but not in the grocery store. I'm like, so I couldn't even find food you want, right? You're trying to eat something good. And
then you got into the hamon.
You know what my go-to began to be?
What?
It began to be chicken, peas, and carrots in a buttered little pan. I just put a big old stick of butter in there, throw a little piece of chicken and some
Peas and
vegetables, and then
carrots.
just put it in the oven. That became my go-to for the first area.
Wow.
And then I learned some other more Spanish delicacies.
I still can't eat paella from our trip.
Really? You
paellas.
overloaded?
I overloaded to the point that I literally can't eat it to this day.
It's impossible.
No, it's not impossible.
Listen,
It
if
is
you're
for
watching
you.
or listening to this podcast, do not fall for the trap of saying the paella is unedible.
It's
the best thing you'll
It's
ever
your
have.
favorite thing ever.
We had paella almost every day.
Twice a day.
Why not?
And we had to eat, and then they would just keep loading me up, and I had to get bailed out by Grant's little sister a couple times. She ate my plate for me. So you're on your, and that, dude, this is stuff. It's so gold with missions, and you've served another mission since, and I'm excited to talk about that as well, because it's probably a totally different experience being in a different position. Or maybe it's similar. I'm not sure. So mission, it's the grind. At what point did you grow like immense love? Because you love Spain.
Yeah.
That is like, I know that about you. You love Spain. You've been back a million times since then. You know it like the back of your hand. It's like, that's your happy place. One of many, I assume. When did you start like developing that love for it of like, dude, this is the coolest place ever, and I want to continually visit here forever?
It's a really good question.
I'm curious.
I think in my experience, I don't have an instant where it changed, because in reality, the people, I do think I found them to be a little bit warmer in different parts of the country from where I started.
Yeah.
Galicia is a very dark and gloomy, rainy, wet climate. And I think generally people probably keep more to themselves. So there really was a sense of, don't talk to me. I don't care who you are. And the other parts of the country aren't quite that way, although they're still very closed off. So I can't point to a moment, but I just probably in my third area where I felt at this time I could really communicate with everybody. I think when you understand somebody and whatever barriers you have, in my case, it was the language a lot of times, but we have other barriers to getting to know people. We either don't listen to them, we don't ask questions, we're selfishly only invested in ourselves. It's hard to develop a real love for someone that you don't know. So when you can't understand what they're saying or who they are, that's really challenging. So I think at some point, probably in my third area, when I've been in the country now 7 to 10 months, I think is where that love started to shift. And I think by
That's
this
cool.
point, you appreciate the customs. You appreciate the fact that at 2:00, the whole country shuts down for Mediodía.
Yeah.
And everybody walks home from school and everyone takes a nap and then they go back and work for a couple more hours and then you're done for the day. Like,
Yeah.
things that are weird, like why is everything shutting down at 2:00 when I need something? I want to go buy it at 2:00 because I'm working until 2. Like, why are you all closing?
Yeah.
To, just the nuances of the language and the food. By then you're starting to recognize it and appreciate it. You can have conversations with people, and by getting to know them, you start to develop a love and a respect for them.
Yeah.
And that's when it all probably started shifting for me. Those last,
That's super
my
cool.
first 2.5 areas, rough and adjusting. The last 2.5 areas, just completely enjoying it.
Just your favorite. That's awesome. I love that. And then so you go, you fulfill on your full-term mission. You get back. Did they have a spot for you on the baseball team, I assume?
Well, here's
or was
the thing.
that like a battle, or how did that all work out? Getting back into like not the real world, but like getting back into like, I would say a mission's kind of like such a unique thing that nothing else relates. Like you're thrown. I see my friends when they come home, right? When someone comes home from a 2-year mission, they're like, they want to just go to their room because they're just overstimulated by everything. I remember we threw Grant a massive party. Like when he got home, there was like 2,000 people that ended up showing up at his house. And the whole time, it's actually where he met his wife right now, Zoe. I take credit for that. But he literally the whole time's like, I want to go to my room. Like, I don't want to be down here. And I'm like, holy crap. I was like, you used to love this stuff. So how did that, segueing back into like normal life, different life, like how did that happen? Did you have a spot on the team still? Did you have to go and earn your keep, or what happened there?
Yeah, when I came back, I actually switched schools. I went from BYU, which was my dream school, to at this point, I had met my wife at BYU as a freshman, and we had dated all year. And then when I went on the mission, we wrote letters for the 2 years I was gone.
Yeah.
So in many ways, I really was confident that relationship would continue to grow into eventually marriage, which it did. And now we've been married almost 23 years. So that part of the equation was kind of removed from my decision-making. And I got an opportunity to go to a new school, and that school was Stanford. And that came to me because my parents, my dad and my high school coach made an effort to reach out to the coaches at Stanford while I was in Spain and describe who I was. And the coaches looked into it a little bit and found out that I had been a successful pitcher in high school. And so pretty much they said, oh, fine, we'll give this kid a chance. And so I wrote essays while I was finishing my mission in Spain to be accepted into the school. I got accepted, and then it was a matter of deciding whether I was going to go back to BYU or whether I was going to go pitch at Stanford. And after visiting both schools and kind of prayerfully considering what was best for me, I felt like it was right and best for me to go to Stanford. And so I made that transfer, and that's
wild.
Yeah, it was hard in the one sense because I had my classes and I was going to room with my best friend from my freshman year. But I decided that this was a better move for me.
What piece of it, like, because it obviously worked out awesome, right? So intuition, gut, and prayer absolutely steered you in the right direction. What was the reason though at the time? Like if you had to logically to describe to someone when they're like, why are you going there instead of here?
Yeah.
Was it just, what was it for you?
The more I thought about it, I couldn't think of a reason I wouldn't go there.
Yeah,
Just
you're like, I just probably should.
The school was, it's one of the most elite schools in the world, and the baseball team had lost in the championship at the College World Series the year before. And the weather is ideal, and the student body, there's like 6,000 undergrad. And so at the end of the day, it became like, I can't think of a single reason I wouldn't go here.
Yep.
So that's why I chose to go back.
I love it. So then you get out there, and what was that journey, and how did that lead into MLB? Casey, how did that lead up to where you got?
Well, it was first and foremost, the teammates were amazing. I just had teammates that one of them belonged to our faith, but none of the other ones did. And they didn't necessarily live by or have any interest in the lifestyle that is created within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but they were always interested and they were always inclusive. We got together, I remember the first week with all the freshmen and the 2 transfers, myself and another guy who had come in, and we all went to lunch together, and then let's do dinner tonight at the dorms. And we just became a real close-knit group really quickly. And we would spend hour after hour at the baseball field, in the locker room afterward, on the field, just talking ball, watching baseball on the TV. And so it just became a totally different experience from what I had at BYU, where BYU, a lot of the players were married, had children.
Mm-hmm.
Things were busy. A lot of things were going on. So, when practice was over, the whole team kind of scatters, and there was none of this kind of congregating.
Yeah.
Just at Stanford, all of a sudden, we were just a family, like really quickly too. Within weeks, all of a sudden, we were just a tight-knit group. And so that made the experience really unique. It made me love the sport of baseball more than I ever had before.
Yeah.
And when it came to the season, after, some practices, it was like, geez, let's go. Like we're a team that's really gelling and molding together. And I pitched well enough during the fall to earn a position as a starting pitcher on the team. And there was no guarantee. When I got accepted, it was just simply, we've got you accepted and you're going to be a preferred walk-on essentially to our team, but we've never seen you. So you're going to have to come in and earn it. But I did that during the fall. I pitched really well in October and November and was awarded a chance to be one of the 3 starting pitchers.
That's unreal. That's awesome. I love that. And I think probably super, super important, hindsight's 2020, so maybe you can answer this, is the fact that went and you fell in love with the sport even more is probably why one of the things that propelled you as far as you went. You went as far as you can go in that sport, which is really cool.
No doubt about it.
Which is super cool. So then what was that journey like? How long were you there? What was that journey like? What were the trials throughout that? And you've already mentioned some of the big things that were like pivotal in a good way. Like, what was that experience like? How long were you there?
Yeah. So I was at Stanford for 2 years. And the first year we made it all the way to the College World Series and to the championship game against Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I pitched twice in the College World Series. I pitched my worst game really of the year, but we ended up coming back and winning the game. So, no harm, no foul in that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I pitched the game that helped us advance to the championship game against the University of Miami. We ended up losing that game in a blowout, but hugely successful season. The second year I came back again, and we were ranked number 1 to start the year. We brought everybody back, I think, except one player, I think, signed. Everybody else was coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were really number 1 for most of the year.
That's probably so fun.
It was fun. I mean, we just destroyed people. We were a really good team. I think 5 of us played in the major leagues.
That's awesome.
At some point.
That's so fun.
Just a fun group. We won a lot of games, just played super well as a unit. Got back to the World Series. The road that year was a little bit tougher, but we got back. And eventually we lost to Texas in the semifinals, and Texas became the champions. So back-to-back years of heartbreak, but, we just were such a good team. And after my second year, I was drafted by the Cleveland Indians
Mm-hmm.
In the first round. And by then I was 23 years old. I'd been drafted 3 times, once by the New York Mets in high school in 97, once in the 3rd round by the Pittsburgh Pirates in 2001, and eventually in the 1st round by the Cleveland Indians in 2002. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, 23 years old, I figure, listen, if I've got 3 opportunities, clearly this is in the play. This is in the cards for what God has for me in my life.
Yep.
I took the 2 years off and put it to the side and came back, and it was there for me. And so I'm like, you know what, we'll go for it. This feels right. And by this time I'm now married. My wife and I got married in June of 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And so together we felt like it was the right thing. And we embarked on a journey that would take us, back east to Akron, Ohio, and Buffalo, New York, and Cleveland over the next 4 years. But my time at Stanford was so vital. Certainly I don't think I would have ever played professionally had I not gone to Stanford. It just did so much for me, emotionally, and the way that I approached the game, and not even to mention the fact that I was coached by my pitching coach, Tom Kunis, and a great manager in Mark Marquis, and a great just overall coach in Dean Stotts. These are all people that in their own ways really, really impacted who I was. Because when I came back from serving 2 years as a missionary, I didn't throw for those 2 years. So I was a blank canvas.
Yeah.
And when I showed up, they said, "What pitches do you throw?" And I said, "I don't really throw any pitches. I got a fastball." And they said, okay, well, here's a curveball. Try this grip. And I threw a couple of them. They said, it looks good. And they said, here's a slider. Try this grip. And here's a changeup. And I used those grips really for the better part of the next 17 years. So they were able to kind of say, do this, do that. And it's almost like the bad habits I had formed as a young high school pitcher.
They're gone. You didn't have any.
They like disappeared.
You didn't have any.
Yeah, I could just look at what it looked like to have good mechanics, and I could say, okay, I can try to mimic that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I had to overcome bad kind of motor skills that had been ingrained into my muscles because they'd all been completely deleted.
Yeah.
Over the previous 2.5 years.
That's awesome. So then that's when your MLB journey like began, right? How long did that last? What was that like? And then obviously getting to like the pinnacle of everything is obviously very, very exciting and cool to talk about and cool to hear about too. I remember first meeting you flying to Spain. That's when I first met you. We were flying to Spain and I was like hearing about it. I'm like, what in the world? I was like, that's sick. And then I went and Googled you. I'm like, oh, heck yeah, cool. And then we hung out and it was just a blast. So I'm curious more detail because I never got into detail asking you about that. And you probably maybe get sick of talking about it. I'm not sure. But like your MLB journey, how long was that? Where did you end up? What was that experience like?
Well, I started in 2003 was my official debut professionally. And I started in AA, which was nice because you skipped all the lower levels. There's rookie ball and there's low A ball and then there's high A ball. And I skipped over all those levels. And it was mostly because of my age, but also the team viewed me as someone that had pitched well enough that I deserved to be able to start at a higher level. So I started at AA and pitched so well in AA that within 2 months, I was already moved up to AAA. And AAA is just one level below the big leagues. So within 2 months of my professional career beginning, I was right at the cusp of making it to the major leagues. And
before major leagues, I had a buddy on here, Paxton Schultz. He's in one of the farm leagues. I'm not entirely sure. Like, I don't understand the baseball rankings. At what point do you start earning money to the point where it's like, okay, we can live, like wife doesn't have to work. She can raise the kids or whatever it may be. Like when you're in AAA, you're making decent money. Correct or incorrect? Or
no, incorrect. I mean,
incorrect. Yeah. Tell me.
You're not making decent money till the big leagues.
Got it.
And I know things have changed. And I don't know all the details of what you earn now, but when I played, I mean, it was not uncommon to see a player receive a paycheck in the minor leagues for $375 a month.
Oh my!
Consider
gosh.
That. Consider making $375 or $450, whatever it was, for 5 months, and that's all you earned. So you really survive on your bonus. You know, you get a bonus when you sign, and that bonus can be anywhere between $10,000 and $10 million.
Yeah.
For those who sign big bonuses, you know, it's no big deal to earn nothing in the minor leagues. For those who don't sign big bonuses, imagine you're pulling out loans. You're working in the off season. You're going home, driving home in a beat up Honda Civic to go home and work because you literally earned whatever, $5,000 playing that summer.
That's gotta be crazy.
Yeah. So thankfully there's been, you know, some major adjustments by baseball to take care of minor league players better, but you earn your money when you make it to the big leagues. And then you start to earn fractions of what you earned the year before. So once you make it up there, even if you have to go back to the minor leagues, you earn, you know, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars versus the tens of thousands.
So once you break through, you're going to be making money, even
generally.
If
I mean, there's no guarantee, but yes, once you break through, you need to accumulate time in the big leagues to really earn good money. But you know, the minimums in the major leagues are good. I think it's upwards near $775,000 a year, and you have to earn that as a minimum. So that's really good. But yeah, the minor league life is a grind, really challenging, especially when you don't have money and you're sweating for your future. Yeah. I was fortunate because I was a first round draft pick. I was treated very well. I was given the largest signing bonus in Cleveland Indians history to that point. Yeah. And so my wife and I could be comfortable. That's awesome. We were very taken care of. So I have no complaints that way.
That's awesome.
But I pitched really well and got moved up to AAA and began to struggle immediately. And those struggles lasted for the rest of the season.
In AAA, you began to struggle.
For the next 3 months, I really never got into a good groove, pitched really poorly.
So when you say struggle, do you mean like you were out of the groove, like you were playing poor for yourself, or were you just playing against a whole new caliber of player where you're like, holy crap?
Both. I mean, the players were better and I was pitching worse. Got it. So I think if I just would have kept with what I was doing in AA to be successful, it probably would have worked out.
Why do you think that is?
Because we're human, and because baseball is hard. That couple guys. My first pitch,
that's a fair answer. I'm looking for like something that happened.
no,
but
you're just
like,
you're
dude,
human. If you think you're good at something, you're gonna suck at it tomorrow. So just wear it. That's why. That's why. To put it into perspective, I threw my first 10 games in AA.
Yeah.
Gave up 0 home runs, and I think I allowed a total of 10 runs.
Okay.
My very first pitch in AAA was hit for a home run, and I gave up 6 runs in like 1 2/3.
So maybe that home run hit on you was what threw you into a little
for
funk,
sure. Yeah, because,
right?
oh, geez, if I throw right down the middle, these guys are going to hit it for a home run, and you start to
Make
adjust the way
adjustments.
you pitch,
Yep.
of course.
Got it.
So that year finished abruptly and really poorly, and so the next year they put me back in AAA to start, and I pitched so bad they actually sent me back to AA.
Really?
And I really just, in AA that year, I was not nearly as good as I was the year before. I wasn't as bad as I was in AAA because the competition was a little bit lower.
Yeah.
But I never got into a good groove. I never really got into a rhythm where I was pitching well. I just was always average. You know, 5 innings and give up 3 runs, and 7 innings and give up 4 runs. Never a game where I go 6 and give up 0.
Yeah.
And so I labored through the rest of that year, and I got off to another slow start in my 3rd year.
Well, what's your headspace then when you get moved? That's like so brutal. Like it's almost like having all your accolades stripped away in a way. And maybe I'm looking at it wrong. Like maybe it's like, no, it's not that big a deal. You but like the way I'm viewing it is like, dude, they like progress you and they're like, oh no, psych, and they pull you back.
Yeah,
and to me,
it's a demotion.
Yeah, to me, that's like a mind like bender, and that would mess with most people pretty heavily, I assume, emotionally.
Yeah.
More than anything. Where was your headspace like, no, I'm good, like I'm gonna figure it out? Or was it more of like,
it's frustrating because you don't want to go backwards. It's like, hey, we think you're so good at your job, we're gonna give you a promotion. Actually, you're not that good at it, so we're gonna go back to the old job.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's what it is. So, but at the end of the day, like I knew I was pitching poorly. I have decent self-awareness. So when you can't get somebody out in AAA, like I can't stay here. Like I don't get to keep pitching here. So
yeah.
Does it mess with you? No, you put a lot more pressure on yourself to pitch better. And especially when there's an investment into you as a player, you can feel that pressure, right? They don't write articles about a kid that's the 42nd round draft pick and struggling. But when you're the 1st round draft pick and you're expected to pitch well enough to be in the major leagues and you're not, there's a lot of negativity that can swirl around. And
yeah,
I think the hardest thing for me was probably just the sensing of panic around me.
Yeah.
I naturally panic myself because I want to be better. But when the pitching coach, you can tell they're having pressure put on them by their superiors who are having pressure by them. I could just sense that everyone that came to watch me was coming to try to fix me, and everyone that was coming to watch.
And they should be a source of confidence for
correct.
you.
There was very much like, oh, we need to figure out how to fix you before this all goes bad and we all get fired.
Oh.
And so I thought that was, there was a few coaches. I remember my AA pitching coach, Steve Lyons, was one that I felt like he was able to separate it. Like he was not worried about himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was just there to help me.
Yeah.
So like, hey, Jeremy, my job's fine. I'm not going to get fired because you're not pitching well. But I could sense very much with others. It was like, they felt like if I didn't pitch well, that was going to cost them their job. And imagine feeling the pressure that your performance not only impacts you, but it impacts
especially people you look up to.
Yeah.
And people that, that's crazy. So
then I think that
season,
added to the pressure as much as anything. Was my headspace was fine on a personal approach, but really challenged in the sense that everywhere around me just felt like everyone was on eggshells.
Yeah.
And everything I did that was wrong would just make everything worse.
So then going into the 3rd season, was it like emotions going into the 3rd season? Was it like fear, or you're not really, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where your emotional faults are. And I'm not seeing them, but it's like, was it like anticipation, fear? Were you hungry to go prove yourself, or was it like, oh crap, like I need to go?
Probably the latter. I think by the 3rd year was more like, oh crap, I hope I can figure this out.
Got it.
And it started off bad as well. So now you have almost 2 full years of baseball that are bad.
Yep.
And by this point, like I was very frustrated. I was unhappy with myself because I just, for the sake of all that's good, can I just please have a good game? And it felt like a good game was just not in the cards. And, so you're just frustrated at that point. Like guys are negative around you. You're negative to yourself. My wife's trying to support me and help me. And, God bless her as much as you can help someone that's just on this literal island of a pitching mound and just stinks at what they do. there's only so many I love yous and hugs and you'll be fines that really
Yeah.
just get into that penetrate the shield of frustration and anger that I had on. So, by the end, she realized, listen, I'm here for you, and your worth is not dictated by getting people out, but
It's amazing.
if you can ever be of help, my hug will help, come get one.
Yep.
But I'm over there just scuffling. I got a teammate that's like, you should just quit. He told me I should quit. And I'm like, I probably should have, but I'm not a quitter. And so I'm like, I'm not going to quit. They're going to have to kick me out of here before I'm done. And I probably got really close to the point where they were about to kick me out. But, I had an epiphany. And I think this is really valuable for people to recognize that everything you're taught and said and told and counseled, there's going to be a moment where the right thing hits at the right time. And I remember it was our pitching coach we were all pitching pretty bad. So in some ways, misery loves company. I was pitching bad with a lot of other pitchers too, which made it a little bit better, I guess, at times. But we had a pitching coach that was just frustrated as can be with all of us. And he pulled us in and had a meeting and said, listen, how many of you guys think you can throw pitches up in the zone and get away with it and be successful? And, I don't even know if anyone raised their hand. We knew the answer was none of us, but he's like, none of you can. He's like, if you don't make an adjustment, you're all going to be done with baseball within months or weeks or days because you're all pitching terrible. He says, until you learn how to pitch low in the zone, none of you will be successful and you'll be stuck here forever, or you'll be back home bagging groceries. And that's all he said. He just made such an emphasis on pitching down in the zone. And so I just went out that day and we were all kind of like semi-frustrated with ourselves, semi-frustrated with the coach, semi-wake-up call, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And I told my partner, I said, I'm just going to throw every ball as hard as I can right at your shins. Every ball is going to be a low pitch. I'm going to get out of this AAA mess that I'm in. I'm going to pitch low balls and be successful. And so for the next weeks, 2-3 weeks, I just threw every ball as hard as I could, low in the zone at my partner's shins, and he hated my guts for it. But I said, you got to do whatever you got to do. Lay down, get on your side, squat down, whatever you do, because every pitch I'm throwing is going to be right at your feet.
So your catcher was
and I took it
pissed.
out, and I took it out to the game, and all of a sudden I was throwing pitches low, and the more I threw them low, the more aggressive I got, and the more confident I got, and the more outs I got, and it really was the answer. Like, I just needed to focus on throwing pitches down in the zone. Super simple advice that I've been told a million times, but for whatever reason in that moment, it struck me as like, that was my what do they call those things? Lifesavers, essentially. I was drowning. I'd been drowning for 2 years in this professional baseball world, and a coach threw out a lifesaver. Said, if you want to save yourself, throw low pitches. And so I grabbed onto that thing, and it just made all the difference. And the rest of that year, I don't know what my record was, but I know I finished, I think, with 12 wins and 10 losses.
Yeah.
When he said it, I must have had like 4 wins and 9 losses. So I went on a nice stretch down the end, went back the next year for my 4th season, and pitched great all year long. Pitched super well in the minor leagues. The big league team had no opportunities come up. Nobody got injured. Nobody pitched poorly. The team was really good in Cleveland in 2006, which was my 4th year. And so the 4th year, my confidence is high. My performance is consistent and good.
Yeah.
And there's just no opportunity. And it was like the door of opportunity had closed. Had I pitched like I did in year 4, in year 1 and 2,
game over.
I would have been in the big leagues much earlier.
Yeah.
And I would have had a much longer career with the chance to, to really accumulate some worthwhile numbers as a starting pitcher.
Yeah.
But it came later. And at that point, at the end of that 4th season, the Indians called me and said, we don't have room for you on our roster anymore. And so they took me off of the roster. And
what is that process like? So you just pitched a great year, and then if they take you off their roster, does that just mean like, hey, he's up for grabs?
Yep.
Like,
exactly. All the other 29 teams have a pecking order by the worst to the best. And so the worst record gets first crack at you, and they have to, the thing is they have to put you on their active roster, and there's only 40 spots on a roster. So there is some number crunching they have to do. And the first team actually passed on me. I think it was Tampa Bay was the worst team.
mm-hmm.
And then Kansas City, I think, was the second worst team. And eventually I would end up on Kansas City, but not at this point. And the third worst team was Baltimore. And so the Baltimore Orioles had a roster spot available that they wanted to give to me. And so they gave it to me and said, we've signed you. They called me and said, we signed you. We have a lot of confidence in you. Our coaches and scouts in the league have seen you for the past 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really optimistic about the corner you've turned. So come into camp in March, give us your best shot. And if you make the team, you're with us. And if you don't, we'll have to send you back to the minor leagues. And it was in 2007, my 5th year of professional baseball. I was also now 27, turning 28 years old, which is really, really old for a guy that has never established himself in the major leagues. I went into camp and took that momentum and that confidence from the back end of 2005, the full season of 2006, and I went into spring training and I pitched lights out. Every single game in spring training, I was unbelievable. I gave up 1 run the entire spring, and it was a home run to Miguel Cabrera, who just retired this past year, is going to be a Hall of Fame hitter. And that was the only run I gave up. It was a blast of a home run. And at the end of it all, the coaches made the decision that I made the team as the last player of the 25 active roster.
Mm-hmm.
And
in the major leagues.
Yep, in the major leagues. 2007 was my first full year. I'd already had
the third worst team, you're saying.
Yep.
Then if you go put a pitcher who's pitching that lights out in, does that just flip that program upside down, or is it
not
like
quite
a steady climb up the mountain?
No, our program was flipped upside down, and I did not get to flip it back the right way.
Got it.
I pitched well personally, but we were
Got it.
We were not a great team in Baltimore. They could have picked the 3rd time the next year probably as well. If there was people out there for them, they could have.
Got it.
But I pitched well, and just really, really enjoyed being in Baltimore. It was a lot like Stanford, where the camaraderie was so unique and special that I just felt at home. It really was almost the exact pattern that I saw in college.
Yeah.
Where I struggled for a team and never really felt totally comfortable or at home as part of that organization or that program, and then got somewhere else and all of a sudden it's flipped over.
It's like refreshing.
Yeah. Same exact thing. Going to Baltimore, obviously I'd had success in the minor leagues with Cleveland, but going to Baltimore, just all of a sudden it just was a breath of fresh air. That my favorite teammate maybe of all time was Kevin Millar, and he was just like the most welcoming, funny guy that just was he just built everybody up, and he just made me believe that I belonged. He made me believe that I was good. He would be over there at first base just telling me how nasty I was and no one could hit, and he's all, man, you're nasty, bro. No one can touch you. Keep firing down the middle. He just was so positive that I think I just felt like I was unhittable. And I felt like I had guys around me that had my back, and it made all the difference. So
amazing.
2007, I was pitching so well that I was considered for Rookie of the Year and earned a spot on the team again for the next year, and began my 6th year as the opening day starter, which is a huge honor to be given that kind of role as your team's best starter. My 2nd year in Baltimore, they gave me that honor. And so
that's awesome.
Yeah. So
that's
just
really, really cool.
A quick turnaround really from where I was and the depths of despair in which I was in my 3rd year. Like it was gruesome, and it very well could have been over. And I'm sure many players have quit in those same circumstances. And thankfully I was able to push through. And have that confidence that the effort I was putting in each day was going to be validated.
Yeah. That's so rad. That's probably such a good feeling. Like over anything, I bet that feeling is just amazing to go flip that around. That's so rad. So then from there, how do you end up on the Royals? And then also, as you tell that, I'm curious, like, I can't imagine going and building camaraderie and like basically a family with players and then getting like, that's always been super weird for me in sports. Professional sports, getting traded to me feels like that'd be so hard. Like, I can't even imagine going and being with a different team. Like, I'm curious what that's even like. Like, you're playing with your favorite of all time teammates, or is it just something you're like, oh,
well,
nice.
Have you ever switched teams?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm rocking with like in if we're talking baseball and like sports, yeah, and like junior high school, that stuff. But like with work stuff, that's what I'm talking about. I work in a team environment. Culture is extremely important. You go create like brotherhoods, and if someone like leaves, even if you're like stoked for them to go pursue like their career, it's like heartbreaking in a way because you just don't see them as much as you want to. So I've rocked with the same. Brad Rosser has been like my dude since the start of my like career per se, and that's the only comparison I have. So I'm curious what that process is like.
Certainly, you make a good point. Yeah, that's one of the tough parts about the industry is that you change teams, and a lot of times there are points in a career, free agency, where you are able to choose where you go, but the team controls you for a whole lot of years before you ever get to choose where you go.
Yeah.
So you are at the mercy of that trade or being released or other guys doing the same thing. And it's hard, but what's fun about the baseball world is it's such a small fraternity of people that, first of all, you really get to know everybody in the big leagues.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, there was 25 players allowed per team, and there was 30 teams, so 750 major league players in the entire world.
Yeah.
And so the family's pretty small. So even if you're part of a 25-man family and you go somewhere else, you've competed against them. And so it's
That's
relatively seamless to adjust into a new team. And I actually thought it was enjoyable. I played for 5 different major league teams, and I really enjoyed going into a new clubhouse. I like meeting people for the first time. I like learning their story and kind of connecting. So for me, actually, a new team, maybe even to a fault, was as exciting as anything for me. Like, oh, this is a new adventure.
Yeah.
And I remember when later in my career, I went from Kansas City to the Texas Rangers, and I was only there for a couple of weeks in spring training. I was excited for something new, and looking back on it, hindsight, I probably should have stayed where I was. Like, I was with a very familiar set of coaches and players who knew who I was. My struggles would be viewed differently. This is the moment I began to struggle in Texas. It was like, you're done, like you're broken goods.
Yep.
Whereas Kansas City had the patience and the history to know what I look like when I'm just kind of battling through something versus when I'm actually done.
Yep.
So there's a lot of benefit to the familiarity that you're talking about, and
that makes
sticking
sense
with your team. But so I spent 5 years in Baltimore. They were great. I love Baltimore. The stadium is really second to none. The city is incredible. We lived right downtown. I'd ride my bike to the stadium.
Yeah.
Every day. By the end, we actually had a bike rack in the clubhouse. It was started with just me, and by the end, we had 6-7 guys riding their bikes. It was so much fun. And we got it just became like a thing because it's such a small, Baltimore is a small, big city.
Yeah.
And so everyone lived within 2-3 miles of the ballpark, and there's no better way.
How did civilians like that seeing you guys ride your bikes to the stadium? Where did they just love it?
They loved it. Yeah, they'd wave at you and say, I remember I used to ride my bike even with my suitcase on getaway day.
Yeah.
I would just ride my bike and haul my suitcase behind me all the way through like downtown Baltimore.
That's so classic.
Classic. Oh, just classic
I love
stuff.
That. I love that.
Yep. But my time there was really memorable. Like, one of our kids was born there, my 13-year-old, and great times. I pitched well for a lot of my career in Baltimore. We didn't do well as a team, but there's just no better place to go to work. The organization was fantastic. I loved my coaches and the people there. So I wish we could have won more. The moment they traded me from Baltimore to Colorado, the Orioles actually went to the playoffs.
Really?
Right after I was gone. So that was kind of heartbreaking. But you know what? I take it like, obviously I was holding us back. So good for them that they get to enjoy some playoff ball. And eventually I would get my chance to pitch in the playoffs. But I was traded from there to Colorado.
Okay.
And that was, you talk about disruptions and tough times. That's by far the lowest point in my professional career was in Colorado. It started off good. I was traded over there to be their starting opening day pitcher. And I pitched well on opening day down in Houston, and I was 1-0, and the Rockies thought, oh, great, this is exactly what we wanted. We wanted a guy that we could depend on, that can be a leader, both, on the mound as well as with the other pitchers. And from there, it just absolutely nosedived.
Really?
Had a tough debut in Colorado. I gave up a ton of runs against the Giants. Next thing you know, I have a bicycle accident riding to the stadium. So what I had done forever in Baltimore,
it's
all
cursed.
Of a sudden now I have an accident and I have to go on the disabled list with a sprained right AC joint. It was that bad. I was going really fast. And it was actually on grass. And so I wasn't all banged up and scratched up, but my chain came off my bike and I went straight into the ground in my shoulder and just destroyed my AC joint. So I couldn't really move it for about 2 weeks. I rehabbed and came back pretty quick. But when I came back, I just was not good. It was not good. It went from bad to worse and to worser over, and just got just so bad. So I got to the point where I really wasn't, I was told I was moved out of the rotation to a bullpen spot. And then I was told I wasn't going to pitch anymore in Colorado. And they were pretty much like trying to ask me just to leave. Will you just leave? And I said, I'm here for the long haul. I'm not going to quit on you. So I said, I'm not going to leave. If you kick me out, I'll go, but I'm not going to leave on my own.
Yeah.
And out of mercy and just a miracle, they traded me to the Kansas City Royals for a pitcher that was actually almost the mirror image of what I was doing, just on the other side of the, the mountains. Their pitcher was just as bad as me, but they swapped one bad pitcher for another. And fortunately, again, I had kind of that family and those coaches that it just seemed to click.
Yeah.
And everything within a couple of starts clicked back into better than ever. It was all of a sudden, it was all resolved, and I was as good a pitcher as I've ever been, and earned a 3-year contract to go back with Kansas City. So that trade from
That is
Colorado
wild.
to Kansas City was, was everything. My career was on life support
Yeah.
in Colorado, and just was really fortunate to go to the perfect spot with the perfect coaches and the perfect defensive players behind me. Made all the difference. I had such good players behind me that all of a sudden, all the hard hit balls I was giving up in the line drives, guys were catching them instead of them falling in for base hits, and just flipped on a dime, just like
That's
that.
so wild. I bet looking back, that's just like, holy crap, thank goodness. Like, that's so crazy. And like the part that's the craziest to me is emotions dictate so much of performance in everything, in my opinion. I think emotions are, unless you're instinctually acting, emotions dictate a lot. And everything you're describing sounds like an emotional roller coaster. I can't even imagine, like, hey, actually, I guess I kind of can imagine, but still, it'd be crazy. Hey, we're going to move cross country, this whole new team. You get there, bicycle accident. They're like wanting you to leave what is your career and kind of your identity and your life at that point. And then something happens and it all just kind of clicks. Like, that has to be the craziest emotional roller coaster ever.
Yeah,
like
it is. And even my family was on that one, because in Colorado, I was so bad that, fans would boo you and swear at you.
They don't like you.
And so my daughter would like be in tears. She was, pretty young still at the time. She was only 8 years old, but she'd be in tears. And my wife got to the point, she's like, you know what? Maybe we're better off watching the game on TV. So it was an emotional roller coaster for the entire
That's so
Guthrie
wild.
family.
That's so wild. So then you get over to the Royals. It clicks, same type of thing. You get there, you click with the coaches, the team, you're back on top, you're crushing it. And how did that lead to everything else?
Well, just the opportunity to be, that first year I got traded over there, I think I showed them signs of what we could do.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that offseason, they made a few trades for some really good players, including some really good pitchers to kind of anchor our staff. And our team went from a young team that didn't know how to win to a young team that was complemented by some veterans that learned how to win. And we learned really quickly. We had the first winning season in 2013 that the Royals had in over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we catapulted from that winning season to the next year making the playoffs for the first time in 29 years.
What does winning season mean? Sorry.
More wins than losses.
So you just win
above
more than
500.
lose.
Yeah, they'd had a losing record for over a decade straight.
Holy crap.
And we
That's
were able to-
crazy.
we
And
were
that
able
was
to-
which year of yours there?
The first full year in Kansas City.
That's
and it was
awesome.
really predicated on great defense, solid pitching in front of it. And that's how it was. Like, we were a defense and pitching team. We didn't score a ton of runs offensively, but we were just so good defensively that we just would stop other teams from scoring. And so you can win. When another team scores 0, you don't have to score a whole bunch to win.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that following year, we took the winning record and were able to build off of that and make it to the playoffs. And that's really where it got exciting, because once we made it to the playoffs, we set an MLB record with 8 consecutive wins in the playoffs to start the playoff season. And it started by being down 7-3 against the Oakland A's in a wild card game. That's one of the most memorable playoff games really in MLB history. We were on the mat, down and out, and we scored 4 runs to tie the game in the last 2 innings.
That's
and then
so
won it in
rad.
extra innings. Went to Anaheim and swept the best team in the American League, and went to Baltimore, my team, ironically, that I had pitched for 5 seasons. Now we're playing them with a chance to go to the World Series. And so my very first playoff start was against my former team.
How many of the team members that you played with were still on that team?
5 or 6.
Really?
Yeah, 5 or 6.
Was that so strange? Like,
it was fun.
Was it fun?
Adam Jones, my center fielder, was certainly there. JJ Hardy, my shortstop, was still there. Wieters, our catcher. It was fun to battle against him. And I pitched a game, 5 innings. I gave up 1 run. I didn't factor into the decision, meaning we won the game, but it was later in the game that we won.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to sweep them as well. So we won 8 straight playoff games, got to the World Series against the Giants. The Giants beat us in game 1. So now we had to kind of, lick our wounds a little bit and figure out how to get back into it.
Mm-hmm.
People say, wow, was it a dream come true to pitch in the World Series? And I tell them all the time, I said, honestly, I never even dreamed big enough to think I could ever pitch in the World Series.
Yeah.
That's not even a dream I had as a kid. I'm just like, I'm just happy to play baseball. And if I play baseball when I'm in college, that's a great blessing. If I play in pro ball, I never even thought about that, let alone the World Series. So pitching game 3 of the World Series against the Giants, we were able to win that game 3-2, and I earned the victory.
That's so rad.
It's a highlight for me. You know,
Yeah,
when you
that's
think
so
about
crazy.
what are highlights in my life, that's a highlight, to win a World Series game and be in the record books as the winner. I was trying to get a base hit too. I went 0 for 2, but that would have been fun too. I'm not a good hitter, but I thought that actually got me most excited. Like, if I got a base hit or a home run in a World Series game, that would be sick.
That would be crazy.
Yeah, but it didn't happen.
I think what you did was enough.
Yeah.
I think what you did was enough.
And when it was all said and done, I got a chance to pitch game 7. We went to the full distance in that series, game 7. And I pitched. I was the starting pitcher, pitched 3 1/3 innings. Didn't go super deep, pitched okay. Gave up 2 runs while I was in the game and left with a runner on base. And that runner ended up scoring. And that was the decisive run. And we lost game 7, 2-3. And, you know, just a unique experience, though, to pitch in the World Series. I remember when I left the game in game 7, I always run on and off the field. I was taught that in college, like, don't walk off and on, just jog or run or sprint even. So I started to run off the field. And as soon as I got to the foul line, I'm like, you know what, you should probably stop and take a look at this. So I kind of slowed up really quickly and looked up into the stands and just tried to absorb the 42,000 fans that were there to celebrate game 7 and hopefully a World Series win. And I still remember kind of the emotion and the feeling of what that looks like, to look up and see.
Yeah, what was that like?
Just sheer, like, excitement and, like, overwhelming feeling. Like, wow, there are people's hopes and dreams that are riding on this game, and I'm right in the middle of it. Like, pretty cool.
That's so cool. That's so crazy. So then you can't really match that. You can't really match that feeling in the sport. So where does the journey go after that? Like, I'm curious with like how long, where to go after that? How long did everything last after that? What else did you go and do? And
from there, most people expected the Kansas City Royals just to take a nosedive, you know, because we hadn't been good for a long time. And all of a sudden we pull off this miracle run in the playoffs and lose in game 7 of the World Series. Most people just discounted us. They picked us to finish 4th in the division the next year out of 5 teams. So we got to the season.
What justifies that?
Who knows? Because they thought we got lucky. So we came out swinging the next year. We won our first 6 or 7 games in 2015 after losing the World Series. And we were pretty much in first place in our division the whole year.
That's awesome.
And people came after us. We had a lot of brawls, a lot of bench clearing brawls. The first month of the year, guys were rough with us. They'd hit us. They were sliding into us hard, just trying to intimidate us a little bit and knock us off the pedestal. And our guys stood up to it time and time again. And that team just brought us closer and closer together. And I think those fights early on in 2015 just solidified us. Like, you know what? Last year we were the Cinderella team and everyone loved us. Maybe now everyone's kind of against us. Let's rally together and just show them what's up. And so we took it to them, and we were leading the division all year long, made it back to the playoffs, and had to battle through some tough series against the Astros, against the Blue Jays, but eventually made it back to the World Series. And this time against the New York Mets, we were able to win the series in 5 games, World Series champions. There's no feeling like it.
That's so
to know
crazy.
You are the best team in the world.
Yep.
That you've conquered and come out on top, and no one can take that away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really amazing feeling.
What is that like? Yeah, what's the celebration like? Like, I can't even imagine getting into the locker room.
A lot of
and just
hugs and just a lot. I mean, you just want to hug and kiss everyone. Like, it doesn't even matter anymore. Like, you might have a guy on your team that you have barely talked to, or maybe you've had beef during the year. Like, everything is washed away. It's like, it's probably like what heaven's like, where there's just no grudges. There's no ill feelings towards anybody. Like, it don't matter who you are. You could dislike the person to the nth degree. As soon as you win the World Series, you want to hug them, embrace them, tell them how great they are. You love them. So it's just a big love fest.
That's amazing. Yeah. I can't even imagine that.
One of the coolest things was David Wright, who is the best player for the New York Mets on the losing team. I remember he came over to the clubhouse about 45 minutes after the game was over, an hour, and just shook hands with guys. And I don't even know if he knew anyone personally or if he just generally was coming over, like, just to congratulate. But I got a picture with him just because I was so impressed that in a losing circumstance.
That much grace.
Yeah, that he would walk over there and just tell our guys congrats.
That's awesome.
Well deserved. And that was, and he wasn't just a nobody. He was, a big time, Hall of Fame caliber infielder for the New York Mets. That's one of the memories I have of that. But aside from that, just a lot of love. We went home. Everything was closed. It was a Sunday night. We won the World Series.
Yeah.
By the time we got back, I think it was 2 a.m, after you celebrate on the field and then you go inside.
Yeah, so what do? How do you go to bed? How do you fall asleep after winning the World Series? What do you do?
We tried to find a place to go and celebrate. Ironically, they put me in charge of that. Like, Guthrie, find us a place to celebrate. I'm like I go out, guys. Like I don't ever go out and you want me to find the place to celebrate?
Every place you go is closed by 10 p.m.
I said, yeah, where do you guys want to go? You want to go like the Cheesecake Factory or do we want to go to like Shake Shack? No, get us somewhere good. So
find us a good bar.
We tried to find places. Nothing was open. So we went back to the hotel and families and players were there. And we just kind of, just got loud and excited, played music.
That's so awesome.
For a couple of hours.
That's so awesome. And then I'm also curious, what's the feeling the next day when you wake up, right? Like whenever you fall asleep, the next day when you wake up, it's like, all right, suit back up, practice time, off-season time.
No, it's off-season time.
So off-season time, then it's like, all right, like, what do you do?
Yeah, well, I mean,
I'm serious. You know what I'm saying?
The first order of business is a parade. When you win a championship, you get to have a parade. So that was incredible. We had nearly 1 million people in downtown Kansas City, all dressed in blue to celebrate the World Series. They had won the World Series 30 years before in 1985. So they were hungry. The fans wanted to celebrate an amazing time there. And then at that point, everyone goes their separate ways. And to your point, many of those guys didn't come back the next year, myself included. Like that was my last year as a Kansas City Royal, and the brotherhood is still there. In fact, we're going to have a reunion this year for 10 years from our 2014 team. But you see guys, but you never have those moments back again.
Sure.
They exist in a bottle and a memory in your mind of like, this is what it was like, but you never quite get it back. It just it has to exist in your mind and in your memories. And you move forward and you just appreciate them. And that's really what my career was. And my career was, at that point, I didn't get many more opportunities to pitch. I made my last pitch in the big leagues in 2017, 2 years later, but really that was my only outing in the major leagues after the 2015 season. So really the World Series was kind of my last hurrah as a major league player. And
what a way to go out. That's awesome.
But I was super excited to, like I said, if we went backwards and looked at it, my career very much could have been over before it ever began.
Yep.
But was fortunate enough to find a way with the help of good people around me, my wife especially, and to turn things around. And
that's so cool. That's
be
so
able to
rad.
Celebrate a World Series some 10 years later.
That's so rad. So then after that is also super interesting to me because you go reach like this pinnacle. And I just recently talked to Scott Miller on here talking about his golf career and everything like that. And I'm curious, like, you go reach like the pinnacle, and then 2 years later you throw your last ball in the major leagues. Like, where is your headspace for, like, because you never have to work again, right? Financially speaking, unless I'm totally missing the mark on that, you never have to work again, financially speaking. Like, how do you go find a season? Like, there's seasons in life. How do you go move on to the next season with grace and not like? I guess what I'm asking is, some people when they do something to the extent you did it, their identity gets wrapped up in it, right? To some degree, if not all the way. And then when it's no longer part of their identity, it's almost like a struggle to go find their identity. Did you find that with yourself, or was it like, no, pretty seamless trend? Like, fill me in on that.
I think in my mind, I would like to say that my identity was not totally enveloped by a baseball career. I mean, to some extent, clearly it is what you do and it is who you are in many ways.
Yeah.
But I think that's a tough way to live when your identity is into something that's fleeting and will disappear. I mean, especially baseball, right? If your identity is a baseball player, at best, you're going to play 20 years. If you're like one of the best to ever play, a Hall of Famer, you're going to play 20 years. If you're the average Joe Schmo like myself, that could be as short as 1 year. So that's a tough way to live if you're wrapped up in that. And so I tried my best to find other things. And I think that's where my faith really provided me an anchor. Like, sure, I was a baseball player and I played baseball, but in reality, I really felt like above all that I was, just a simple person, just a son of God, just a guy here trying to prepare for an eternal life in the next life. So just trying to do my best to be a good person. And so, for me, I turn the page quickly. I'm happy to adjust, kind of like the idea of moving from one team to the other. And so, though I loved every minute of playing baseball, and I still love playing, I still get a chance to play from time to time. Ultimately, when baseball was over, I felt like I was able to say, thank you. Like that was an incredible time, and I'll take those experiences and use them for good moving forward. But, I have a lot to look forward to. So at 38 years old, when my career officially ends and I retire, I got a lot ahead of me. I knew that. And I got plenty to do and plenty of exciting things. And my family is still young, and healthy. So, nothing to look back and regret, but just move forward.
That's so awesome. And then moving forward, what was that like? Then where did your path take you? Like from there moving forward, how quick did things happen? Your second mission is a super big part of that as well. But what happened in between there?
Yeah, the big surprise was I retired in July, which is when I was with you in Spain. And then at the beginning of September, my wife and I and our family were invited to go and live in Houston to be mission leaders. And
that was such a quick,
super quick.
And that was out of the blue, right? Because that's so much younger than majority of mission presidents. You went and served as a mission president.
Yeah, majority of mission presidents are probably a little bit further on in life, but very unexpected, nothing that we could have seen coming, but, grateful to have that trust that someone would ask us to do that. And so we began, it went from baseball to immediately preparing to go and move our family to Houston for 3 years. And nothing could have prepared me for the experience of what it was like to be a mission president, but you do all you can in advance to be ready for that. And
I can only imagine.
Yeah, we worked with 600 wonderful young missionaries over our 3 years. Half of that time was spent, under normal circumstances, and half of it was spent under regulations required by COVID-19. But, just such a great learning experience. None of my kids were even teenagers at the time. So you talk about, being a parent figure for the missionaries and a leader, a spiritual leader, an emotional leader, all these things that you're expected to do because they leave their home, right? I left my home when I was 19 and I depended on my mission president to get me out of jail within 2 weeks, right? So things like that, all of a sudden, now I have 200
You're
other
on the
people
other
looking
side
at
of
me
it.
like, hey, you got to help me when I'm sad, or you got to help me when I'm frustrated and don't understand the language and I think people are rejecting me. You got to help me if I go to jail. And thankfully, none of our missionaries went to jail. So, but those kinds of things. And I had no experience. I'm still a very inexperienced father, but I was even less experienced when I began that 6 years ago.
So how was that? Like, what did you learn? Because then you're in a totally different seat. Like you said, you're now the one people lean on rather than being able to go and lean on your mission president. Like, what did you learn out there that was like, holy crap, that's like, because I'm sure you carry, that's also really unique too. I never thought about that either. You got a chance to do that before Avery or the kids were like older. So that probably really, really shaped your parenting style, like shaped how you parent, I assume, a little bit at least.
I probably need to shape my parenting a whole lot better than it's shaped right now, but it's just,
you'd be pretty cool.
The experience of it was so rewarding, but it was rewarding because of how hard it was. And difficulty is seeing, you want to see people make decisions that bring them joy and safety and peace. Your parents wanted that for you. My parents wanted that for me. I want that for my kids. But one thing I learned is everybody's built different. In my mind, I think I was trying to probably create robotic missionaries that were all the same. If this is how I am, this is how I want you to be. That was probably the honest way I approached the first couple years of leading them.
Yeah.
But so I learned that everyone's unique and everyone responds in their own due time. Everyone's their own person. And so there are, you can't create these expectations for people. You can just love them. You can teach them and teach them with love is the best way to do it. And you can see it work within them, see them in the light come on in their own eyes and recognize what it means to be great and what it means to choose the right things first in your life and experience the blessings. And everyone wants to do that on their own, right? No one wants to be told what to do. to do it and then see how it works. They want to learn it for themselves.
Yeah.
And so those are hard lessons for a mission president and a parent to learn, is that, love them patiently, trust them, teach them, and then let them learn and make a decision on their own.
Yep.
And I'm still trying to do that for my own kids.
Yeah.
And I certainly struggle to do that for the 600 missionaries we served with in Houston.
Your other kids. Yeah.
But I think that joy of just recognizing who they are and then watching them, witnessing them change. That was probably the greatest.
Super fulfilling.
That was the most fulfilling thing, is see people learn and change for the better.
That's super cool.
And to see the power, the superpower that they have within them to do that. And we stay in touch with as many as we can, which is not nearly enough, but to see them move on in life, to achieve degrees in college, to find jobs, to be married, to start families, to continue to learn, to go through hard things, lose loved ones or jobs even.
Yeah.
Keep pushing forward. That's really rewarding.
That's so cool.
We have a family that has 4 children by birth and another 600 by spiritual birth.
I love that. And then so you just wrapped that up pretty recently. I remember while you were gone on that too. I always joke that I'd go on a mission if you were my mission president. I still have one more year, just so you know.
Of eligibility?
Yeah, I got one more.
Well,
but
why did you, what happened?
I sent in a request and they said no.
Fair enough.
No, I didn't actually send a request.
Liar.
I wish that was a joke. I should have sent in a request. That would have been legendary. Could you imagine? I would have been AP, I promise you.
You could have said, just kidding, if it didn't assign you to Houston South.
Exactly.
Unbelievable. That's on me. I should have been following up with you.
You should have just done my papers for me, and if I got it in the mail and it didn't say Houston South, I'd say no thank you.
Yep.
So then, and that just wrapped up super recently, which is really, really cool. So, and now obviously let's go plug your biz. Now you're running the business a little bit, which is super fun. What's that? Give that a shout out.
Well, when I came back, everyone said, what will you do after you're done with the mission? I had no idea at the time. My wife probably knew deep down inside the list of things would only grow if I had a few minutes to think about it. But
exactly.
When you're really committed to serving, and you don't think about other things. So when I came home, I didn't even know really where we were going to live, or if we were going to build a house, or if we were going to go into an old house, or what we were going to do.
Yep.
But we ended up back in Portland. And once we got there, it was like, okay, just adjust. My daughter was a senior in high school now. My son was entering high school. We had our baby that we had on the missions. We're kind of just get our bearings here.
Yeah.
And the first year was pretty tranquilo. Like, it was, went on a couple of trips that were fun and enjoyable. And the first year was like, okay, get back into this. And then year 2 was just a whirlwind. All of a sudden, I was offered an opportunity to broadcast for the Kansas City Royals. So I did that on the radio last year. And I was offered an opportunity with Major League Baseball as an ambassador in a lot of their international efforts just to grow the game.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said just a minute ago, I was also an investor in a company called Custom Cleats, where we take any sneaker and we convert it into a cleat, a golf cleat, a baseball cleat, a soccer cleat, by simply carving into the bottom of the sole of the shoe and then mounting some cleat conversion plates that we manufacture.
Yeah.
And I had been an investor, but really with that investment, my responsibilities, I was pretty much a silent investor.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the owner, who had run a tremendous business for the better part of 18 years, he asked me if I'd be interested in buying the whole thing. And I called my best friend from BYU, and I'm like, I don't know how to run a business, but if you want to do this, I think the business is unbelievable. It's a great opportunity. And so let's go for it. So I bought the company a year ago. And so all of the sudden I went from not too much to do and kind of pick and choose to having way too much to do.
Yeah.
Way too much to do. So
I was helping you place an order on your phone before this.
I'm trying to book shoes for one of our big league guys who called me, hey, I need 4 shoes. I want you to order them and cleat them up. And when it comes to our big league guys, we try to put the white gloves on for them. And it's just relentless. I'll run the social media. I've got a broadcast. All of a sudden, MLB has 3 international trips. So I was in Korea 2 weeks ago. I go to Mexico City in 2 weeks. My life went from...
You're the farthest thing from retired.
Yes, it's it's horrible. And I can sense I need to find... The word I like to use is harmony.
Yeah.
People a lot of times use balance. You need to find balance in your life.
But sometimes balance means
well,
even, and it's
I mean,
not gonna
balance
be
means
even.
equal and opposite, right? Like even, and it just never is.
Yeah.
When a missionary
I like
returns
that.
home, for example, like, oh, I want to find the balance in my life. Well, you're never going to have it. You're never going to be able to study and pray and do spiritual things as much as you do homework
Yeah.
or real work. You know, there's always going to be an imbalance. And so the word that I like to use is harmony. And I'm still searching for this myself, but harmony is finding the right mix and the right maybe order of things. I think if you wake up
I
and you
love
have,
that.
if you put
I love
spiritual
that.
things first, you're not going to pray for 10 hours and then go to school for 10 hours.
Yeah.
But even if you put God first, you get on your knees and you give thanks and you're grateful for the day and you think through what you want to become that day and what you want to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
You start your day the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates a harmony as you go through your activities.
Dude, I love that. I've always had a hard time when people use balance exactly for that. And I've never found a good substitute. So I honestly have like preached to my people or guys that work with me. It's like, dude, there is no balance. Like sometimes it's this way. And then the way you even it out is by eventually getting here and then it's going to come back. And harmony is like a perfect word. I love that. I think it's genius.
And I think harmony is associated with order. Where do you put your priorities?
Yep.
And if you put them in the right way that you know that is appropriate for you, you'll feel good. You know,
Yeah.
You'll feel good knowing that you did. Like if you like to work out, you know, you're not going to work out for 10 hours and work for 10 hours, but you should find a time that if it helps you relax in the morning or helps put you to rest at night, you find that harmony in your life.
100%.
So that's what I'm looking for. I'm certainly never going to find balance, and I'm way out of balance and I'm way out of harmony at times right now. But I'm really fulfilled by the things I'm doing. I love that it allows me a chance to connect with people all over the world. From Korea a couple of weeks ago, you know, I just happened to find myself at a sponsor's batting practice, and I'm throwing to the guys there. And most of them are Korean, but there's an American guy, and turns out he belongs to the same faith and has a bunch of young girls and boys that are American kids living in Korea. And I, you know, within a day or two, all of a sudden I'm getting a chance to meet with them, with my wife, and just talk to them about life and things that are valuable and important. And so I try to take advantage of every chance to, as I go around the world and have these other unique opportunities like this, for example, come here for this opportunity because I own custom cleats and to get a chance to speak in an event here in Utah. And now I get a chance to meet up with you and share some experiences. So those are fulfilling, and it's going to be a constant work in progress. But, you know, I have my family at home, travel with them as much as I can, invite them to come with me. But at the end of the day, recognizing that some things I'm going to have to say no to.
Yep.
And for the last 15 months, there's been a whole lot of yeses and not too many nos. And so
I'm glad I caught you while you're on your yes train.
Yeah, you did catch me on the yes train.
Before you started saying no, I got you. Dude, I love it. I want to be respectful of your time, everybody's time. I got 2 questions for you. One of them was a special request from somebody that knew you were coming on. I don't even know the answer to it. I don't even know if you're going to recognize the question, so we'll see. And I could ask a million, and anytime you're in town, we'll link up and chat more because I have a million questions for you. But first off, thank you for your story. It's super cool. It's very insightful because I remember bits and pieces, and it's so fun for me to go like put it all together. So the name of the podcast is Today's the Day. The purpose of that and kind of the point of that and the meaning behind that was just from moments back when Casey Baugh kind of like took me under his wing and was helping me out and everything like that. He had this quote written on his whiteboard one day. I don't think he knows this or remembers, but it was all I have is now. And then Today's the Day became like a mantra for guys and for me and my buddies and Coy, one of my best friends in high school. And like what it's become to me, like what it means now to me is basically like, there's no point in stressing about yesterday because it already happened. There's absolutely no point in stressing about tomorrow because it's not even guaranteed. You might not even get it, right? But today's the day. Like this is kind of what you've got. And the goal is having people on here that go and inspire and relate and give golden nuggets that you have and who have done really, really cool things. But also like very important to me, everyone we have on here, I think goes and lives. And I think you are probably, I haven't asked this question in a few episodes. You're probably one of the best examples of like seizing the moment and like taking advantage of the moment. And I'm curious what advice you would have to go and help other people, encourage other people to do the exact same thing, because I think that is one thing about you that's infectious. And like I said, you're an energy deposit to everybody, and it's amazing. It's a blast. I love hanging out with you. And I think it's because that it's like when we're in Spain and we're on a bike ride, like there's probably a million things you could be worrying about on your phone or all these things that you could go and do or business or work. And you're literally hightailing, walking up these stairs. I'm dying as an 18-year-old, like about to pass out, and you're just stoked to go see something you've seen 15 times. And it's my first time seeing it. And I'm like, dude, I wish there was a bus we could take to get here. So I'm curious, like what advice would you have on that for anybody that's listening?
One of my favorite movies is Serendipity, which total spoiler alert for all the viewers who are like, Serendipity, what? The rom-com from 2001? You better believe it. John Cusack and Kate Beckinsale.
That doesn't even surprise me, actually.
Come on.
It doesn't surprise me.
And Jeremy Piven delivers just a stunning performance in Serendipity. But nonetheless, I don't even know if this is true. I've looked it up on the internet a few times and I can't seem to confirm it. But at the end, Jeremy Piven, who's a writer for the New York Times in the movie, that's his role. He says to his friend, the Greeks didn't write obituaries. They simply asked one question: did the person have passion? I think if you work to develop a passion, which, passion is what can mean a lot of things. I think for me, it means enjoyment. It means appreciation. It means to be in the moment. That is one of the greatest things, is work towards having a passion for all things, not just successes, not just things you like, but a passion for growth, a passion for challenge, a passion for the moment, and find what is good about that moment. What is it? Can you be grateful for the air that you're breathing in that given day? And so I just think I feel like I'm a passionate person, and my passion is not always external. It can be when I'm in Spain. When I'm in Spain, everything becomes external. But if you watch me pitch and play baseball, I don't think anyone would say, well, that's a passionate pitcher. Like, I'm a pretty straight-faced type of guy. But deep down, like, I have a lot of passion inside that's boiling over. So I think gratitude and recognition of blessings can lead to that passion. And I think that for me is what it means to, seize the day or take advantage of the day that you're given in the moment you're living in.
I love that. That's golden. I love that a lot. I think that's perfect. And I think substituting the word enjoyment for passion is super important as well, because some people, the way I've heard passion defined is like, if you're not passionate about something, then there's no sense in trying to be passionate about it. And what I've learned is I can get into something that I'm extremely unpassionate about, or I don't enjoy at all. And in applying myself, I can find a way to go enjoy it, because then there's growth in it, there's challenge in it, everything that you're mentioning. So I love that answer. That's awesome. Okay. So last one, I promised I'd ask this question. We're way over. I apologize. Promise this person I'd ask the question. It's going to be really embarrassing for them if I ask the question and it's not the answer they're expecting, or you don't even know who wants the question. So pressure on you.
Don't tell me who wants it. You can't do that.
No, I'm not going to.
Oh, okay, good.
It's going to be embarrassing for them if you don't, and they're going to watch it and they're going to feel dumb. Who is the one person, and I am going to laugh so hard when you don't know, who's the one person that's beat you in a long toss competition?
Oh, it's I'm not going to say his name, but his initials are SB.
Yeah.
I'm not giving this. I'm not giving you the satisfaction, SB. Yeah. And by the way, I was back at that church on Maui, and all I could think about is, how did that guy throw the baseball further than me? And I said, if I was back in high school, back in '83, I could throw a ball over that mountain.
I was talking to him.
took me down. I'm not going to give any of our viewers
Dang it, dude. I was like, this guy, he's love him to death. He's so cocky though. I'm like, bro, I was on the phone before I came and picked you up today, and he's like, you got to ask him, because you remind me a few days. You got to ask him. I'm like, I will. And then I hung up, and in my head, I'm like, there's no way that happened. This family, it's not just him, it's all his brothers are so cocky.
If there weren't eyewitnesses, I would lie to you straight to the camera. But there were eyewitnesses.
That's amazing. Well, shout out to him and Jeremy, dude. Again, we're way over, so I apologize. Thank you so much, dude. It's so good to hang out with you. I appreciate you taking the time. And then everybody tuning in, as always, thank you very much, and much love. Until next time.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Boom, baby. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. As always, it was a blast for me. I hope you got something out of this. If you got something out of this video of value, share this with a friend, and please go show your love. We're on all streaming platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Any ratings, comments, likes, shares, they go a very long way, and they make it so I can keep doing these things for you, and I would appreciate it greatly. So please go share with a friend. Until next time.